Hey everyone, as requested, the poem I will give an analysis on is A Far Cry from Africa by Derek Walcott. It's a very difficult poem, but I have tried to break it down to make it simple and understandable. First, a brief introduction about the poet Derek Walcott. Derek Walcott was born in Castries, St. Lucia, the British West Indies, on January 23, 1930. He was a teacher, a playwright, a poet, and an artist. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1992. As he grew up, he became aware of his mixed racial ancestry. He had both white and black grandparents, and this theme of roots divided became a rich source of material for some of his poetry. A Far Cry from Africa, published in 1962, explores the history of a specific uprising in Kenya occupied by the British in the 1950s. Certain members of the local Kikuyu tribe, known as Mau Mau fighters, fought a violent 8-year long campaign against settlers who they saw as illegal trespassers on their land. In the first two stanzas, the poet paints the horrifying reality of British colonialism, and in the third stanza, his perplexities increases as to whom he should support, as both Africans and English are for violence and he is against it. Let us now first look at the meaning of far cry. Far cry means cry from a distance, not audible. If taken contextually, from poet's point of view, I feel that the poet is someone who has personally not undergone any suppression by colonial rules but has seen his motherland suffer from it and he is unable to comprehend fully. Let us now look into the poem stanza by stanza. A wind is ruffling the tawny pelt of Africa. Kikuyu, quick as flies, batten upon the bloodstreams of the veldt. Corpses are scattered through a paradise. Only the worm, kernel of carrion, cries. Waste no compassion on these separate deaths. Statistics justify and scholars seize the salient of colonial policy. What is that to the white child hacked in bed, to savages expandable as Jews? In the first stanza, we see a dramatic opening where the poet is comparing Africa to an animal with orange brown fur, might be a lion. And we see that wind is ruffling the fur of the animal, which actually means Africa is disarranged by the wind. Here, wind is compared to the Britishers who came to conquer it. The poet is comparing Kikuyu, a largest ethnic group in Kenya, to flies who are feeding on bloodstreams on grassland. See the contrast between the blood and grassland. Walcott paints a picture of dead bodies scattered everywhere in the beautiful paradise like land. The colonel, an English officer, is compared to a worm who ruthlessly says it's a waste of time to cry for these dead corpses. Both statistics and scholars stick to this colonial policy and justify these dead bodies with facts and figures. But the poet feels that those facts and figures means nothing to white people, comparing it to a white child sleeping in bed. Further, he says that nor it affects the brutal people who are used to violence. It is as good as Jews who were destroyed with little significance to anyone. Thrashed out by beaters, the long rushes break in a white dust of abysses whose cries have wheeled since civilization's dawn. From the parched river or beast teeming plain, the violence of beast on beast is read as natural law, but upright man seeks his divinity by inflicting pain. Delirious as these worried beasts, his wars dance to the tightened carcass of a drum, while he calls courage still that native dread of the white peace contracted by the dead. The poet tries to tell how violent and animal like people are in Africa in the above stanza, who have always behaved like animals, thrashing and beating each other, and violence is nothing new to them. The ibis, a long legged white bird, is compared to whites who, though are educated enough and act civilized outwardly, also behave brutally. Comparing Africans to animals, that is, beasts, Walcott says animal killing each other for food and behaving beastly is acceptable and natural, but Those white upright men who think and act as if they are the creature of divine and call themselves God also act like animals, inflicting pain to other human beings, which is actually confusing to these beasts. The poet further compares the war started by these men to dancing to beats of drums, which are made by dead bodies of animals. The white officer calls courage as fear, which always makes peace with death. I have divided the third stanza into two, so let us look at the first part now. Again, brutish necessity wipes its hands upon the napkin of a dirty cause. Again, a waste of our compassion, as with Spain. The gorilla wrestles with the Superman. In the first line itself, there is a change in the poet's tone where he says that again these brutish beasts, that is, blacks, are wiping their dirty, bloody hands on the napkins. Napkins here represents a white and clean cloth. Metaphorically, Walcott is trying to tell that these beastly people are again killing whites in Britain, and he thinks showing compassion to any of these, both whites and blacks, is of no use. As with Spain, this refers to a revolution which occurred in Spain against colonial rules. He is comparing this war to the Spanish Civil War, where many lives were sacrificed. The gorilla wrestles with Superman is a metaphor wherein gorilla is referred to blacks and Superman whites. It means that nobody is worth compassion as both are into violence. The second part of the third stanza, I who am poisoned with the blood of both, where shall I turn? Divided to the vein. I who have cursed the drunken officer of British rule, how choose between this Africa and the English tongue I love? Betray them both or give back with what they give? How can I face such slaughter and be cool? How can I turn from Africa and live? In the above line, for the first time in the poem, Walcott talks about himself. He says that his blood is poisoned by both. He has blood of both the countries in him, and he is unable to decide whom to turn to, or should he divide himself into two. In the next line, he openly declares that he has cursed the British officers for their ruthless behavior and violence. Since both equally take part in violence, he is unable to choose between them. He himself says that he loves English tongue which he uses for speaking and writing. That's one of the other reason he is not ready to give up on English. He questions himself, should he betray them both or should he support them equally? And if at all did support both, how can he be cool and calm about the violence they create? Africa is his motherland, so he questions again, asking should he altogether turn his back on them or should he forget everything and continue to live there? So, the theme of this poem is violence, and we clearly see that the poet is against it. Rhyme scheme, there is no regular rhyme scheme as such. Metaphor, Africa is compared to orange brown furred animal, which might be lion. Blacks are compared to beasts. British colonizers are compared to worms. Historical reference, Kikuyu, the largest ethnic group in Kenya, is referred here. Mau Mau uprising. In the second stanza, the poet has briefly touched this revolt in Kenya, and also Spanish Civil War. So, this was the analysis of the poem. Hope you have understood. Also, please check the link in the description box below for the written analysis. Let me know in the comment section if you need analysis for any other poem. I'll try to put it up. Thanks for watching. Bye.